Hey, if you're a Rush fan, I think you will enjoy this video. I don't remember what the first Rush song was that I heard, but it was I remember hearing Freewill, Spirit of Radio, and Tom Sawyer all around the same time. And I think I might have, Freewill for some reason really stands out to me. Like I recorded it off the radio or something and just remember listening to that over and over and over because it just had that just amazing guitar, and it was just such a great tune. And then and of course that would have been the early 80s, 80, 81 is when those, Tom Sawyer came out in 81 on Moving Pictures. And then somehow, I don't remember who it was, but a friend of mine made me a cassette tape of Exit Stage Left. And I remember I listened to that thing over and over and over. And it was like, as soon as I listened to that album, it was a double album, I was just sold. These guys, the songs were so amazing. I mean, of course, Spirit of Radio's on there, Red Barchetta. I remember hearing Red Barchetta and just getting engulfed in those lyrics and the story. And it was so amazing. Closer to the Heart, beautiful song. That was the first time I ever heard The Trees, which I just absolutely fell in love with. Let's see, Xanadu, Freewill was on there. Tom Sawyer, of course, was also on there. La Via Strangiato. And actually, that was the first time I ever heard A Passage to Bangkok. And by the way, those of you that are wondering, when I took my trip to Thailand a couple months ago, I literally took I took a train from Chiang Mai to Bangkok. We usually fly when we go over there, but this one time we took a sleeping train, and I really did. I was sitting on the train thinking to myself, I'm on a train to Bangkok. It wasn't called the Thailand Express, but I was in that moment thinking, this is actually when I was a little kid. I remember singing on the train to Bangkok. Anyway, that's another story. So I tell you this because I was just absolutely in love with Rush. I just, all this music, I thought it was so amazing. So the first time I remember an album being released by Rush, because all those things were already around when I was starting to pay attention. Because I was, 12, 13 years old when I started hearing this stuff. The first album I remember being released and knowing about it was this one right here, was Signals. I remember, hearing that this album was coming out and then seeing it when it came out and then hearing all my friends who were Rush fans talking about this new album, and then hearing New World Man on the radio. It seemed like that was getting played just constantly. And of course I really, really liked the song. But I also remember people complaining a little bit because they're like, man, there's just so many keyboards on this album, because it really did. I mean, this of course was the album, the studio album right after Moving Pictures. And so, and Moving Pictures was just, with Tom Sawyer, and it was just so heavy and hard. And then all of a sudden it got really into this almost 80s sounding dun 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 dun. You know what I'm talking about. And then of course Subdivisions, dun 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 dun. And this is all on this really kind of 80s sounding keyboards. And I know it threw people off a little bit when they first heard it. And I didn't know the difference. I just heard these cool songs that I thought were really cool. And I remember I really loved New World Man. So the reason I'm talking about this is I found a concert review from a newspaper in Ontario from this tour. So of course this album was released on September 9th of 1982. And then this newspaper, this is November 8th of 1982 from the Windsor Star. Now what was I, 13 at the time, so I wasn't going to a lot of concerts yet. I didn't go see this, but if you're a Rush fan, if you saw this tour, or just if you were into Rush at all, I think you'll find this little article kind of interesting. All right, so here's the article, and it's titled "Toronto's Rush Out of This World." Rush Sunday night, Joe Louis Arena with Rory Gallagher, second show tonight. Okay, Rush travel in style. The Toronto trio made their name through international touring, and their current excursion not only is their most sumptuously equipped, it yields a glimpse of future transportation. Courtesy of NASA, the band's new song, Countdown, takes wing on stage with exciting film of Columbia soaring. So apparently when they were on this tour, they actually had footage of Columbia, the shuttle. And of course, the song Countdown, they even mention it in here, if you look at the lyrics, right here under Countdown, it says, dedicated to, with thanks to astronauts Young and Crippen and all the people of NASA for their inspiration and cooperation. They wrote the song after watching the launch of the space shuttle, and Neil really felt that they wanted to create a song around the excitement of that. I'll be honest with you, I didn't love the song, but it was pretty cool that they did it. And it's the last song on the album. Okay. Their music, with Columbia Soaring, their music benefits from shuttle diplomacy, even though the near-capacity audience clearly thought the Toronto trio was already out of this world. Like much of their work, Countdown has everything going for it except a catchy tune. Lots of texture, ambition, and a high-flown willingness to look beyond rock music's usual boy-girl party compulsion. The three bandsmen were playing better than ever at Joe Louis, too. Cohesive, yet not rigid. But without that link up to one of the future's most beautiful gadgets, the song would remain stolidly earthbound. Other parts of the new album, Signals, can lift off all by themselves. Analog Kid, for example, and Rush kept them airborne. And in Analog Kid, if you ever wonder what it sounds like to have Alex and Geddy like in sync, how tight they can be, listen to the beginning of that tune, man. It is brutal what those two right on top of each other. It's so good. It's so cool what they do with that. Okay, Neil Peart's formidable drumming capabilities are expressing themselves more directly. Geddy Lee's voice has descended from the dog-calling range to a high tenor that's more relaxing for all concerned. Alex Lifeson's guitar playing has exchanged showiness for a richer spectrum of colors. With a ferociously clear sound system on this tour and a much more dramatic lighting design, Rush were able to play almost all the new album as the show's backbone rather than relying on familiar older songs. Lee continues to explore synthesizers without giving up his bass. And this is, I think I was talking about this a second ago. When you look at, especially the songs that were the two big hits, which were Subdivisions and New World Man, I mean, they started out with those really, really strong keyboard, very keyboard oriented and 80s sounding synth. Let's see here. They have picked up the hybrid reggae beat of the Police and, more importantly, the electric flow. New World Man has new deepness as well as the insistent rhythms. And I tell you what, New World Man, I mean, it does have, when you listen to Neil Peart on that song, it is reminiscent of Stuart Copeland. It really does have that real reggae feel to the song, especially, in those verses, which wasn't really new to them, because if you go back to Spirit of Radio, when they get to that end of the song, they do go into that really heavy reggae beat right there at the end. So it wasn't like a brand new thing for them, but it was noteworthy. Even Alex's guitar work was a little bit reminiscent of Andy Summers. That song really did have kind of a Police feel to it. Let's see here, as well as insistent rhythms. The audience paid the band back by reacting with enthusiastic recognition of the new stuff. Amazing. Rush are greeted with fists in the air like the grunt and groin rockers, yet their music can be arduous in its layers, and Neil Peart's lyrics insist on aspiring to literature. And I mean, anyway, I don't need to comment on that. I mean, everybody understands that. That's where the movies come in. I wish they had used even more illustrative clips on the big screen behind the drums. For the Subdivisions theme of the new album, they had expressionistic shots from Warren Cromartie High School. Tom Sawyer brought the cover of Moving Pictures album to life. Years after their sci-fi flights of fancy, Rush are no longer a fly-by-night band. That's more than just a signal. It's a very sign. So anyway, then he goes on and he says the show is opened by Rory Gallagher, a great favorite in Europe. Gallagher sledgehammered his songs with honesty, integrity, and stunning shortage and a stunning shortage of imagination. His four-piece outfit could be any heavy metal band of 1972, Basic Blues, blah, 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 blah. And he even ends it with, I suspect Gallagher was if he weren't so straightforward, I'd suspect Gallagher was a parody of Days of Yore. And the reality of it is people like Alex Lifeson and so many others looked at Rory Gallagher as an inspiration. You know, he's one of those early rockers, and his stuff really is just kind of that straight ahead rock and roll from the early 70s. It has that sound to it. Anyway, if you saw this tour, I'd be curious if Rory Gallagher was opening when you saw him too. But again, for me, this was my introduction to Rush, in the sense that this was the first time I was hearing Rush albums coming out, because everything prior to this was already out when I started noticing Rush. And I really liked it. And the songs that got popular, even though a lot of people, I remember at the time, there were a lot of people that kind of struggled with man, they're so synthesizer heavy in here. Looking back, the sounds themselves are a little bit dated, but it's still really good. And they were just solid pieces of music, and I actually like them. I love them. I love them for what they are. I even don't mind the 80s sounding synth in the stuff. It's still pretty cool. So anyway, I'd love to get your feedback on that. What did you think of this album, Signals? Where does it rank as far as your experience and your love of Rush? And also, did you see them on this tour? And if so, what do you remember from that? Who was the opening band? And what do you remember from the live elements, especially this part that they talk about? Because they really went out of their way here to make a song devoted to this amazing experience that they had seeing the space shuttle. And do you remember seeing that footage in the concert? Hey, if you're not following this channel already, please follow the channel. We've got so many cool things coming up in 2025. And also, like the video. If you're a Rush fan, I am certain that you know other Rush fans, and they'd probably enjoy reminiscing and hearing about this stuff too. Please share the video with them. And as always, have yourself a fantastic day.